Part 31. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 315. Luoluo and Ling, who came out of the bathroom next door, happened to witness Aika being taken away by Professor Coconut. Why do I have a strange sense of déjà vu? Xiao 11 and Xiaoan are like this too, haha. They gave up their plan to go to Aika's room to kill time after taking a bath, and went straight back to the room Liuyan arranged for them. The chat between girls seems to have no definite end, and they may jump from one topic to another unrelated topic at any time. Just like now, I was just discussing the possible changes in my life in the future. Lolo, if I tell the truth to Aika, what will you think? Ling, who was looking at his new clothes in front of the floor-length mirror, suddenly said this. She was now wearing a light and breathable knitted sweater with a hood attached, which reminded her of the big robe she wore when she met the brother and sister. I didn't expect Sister Ling to come so soon, I thought it would take a long time. Luoluo tied her blow-dried long hair into two bunches with hair ties in the room, hanging down from her chest. Her tone was not very surprised, because this was the agreement that the girls had made. If it's not official yet. Did it happen yesterday afternoon? When my brother went to pick you up? That's almost it. Besides, it's not what I wanted to say, but what he forced me to say. Ahaha, is that so? Luoluo smiled bitterly, put his hands on his knees and sat down on the edge of the bed. I didn't expect my brother to have such a wild side. That's not wild, just gangster. Luoluo sighed softly. Ling originally didn't want to say this kind of thing in front of Luoluo, so she still looked at herself in the floor-to-ceiling mirror. But Luoluo's sigh touched some corner of her heart, and Ling turned her head slightly. Actually, we probably haven't told my brother officially, we just give up halfway like this every time. Where's Wei 11? Xiao 11 shouldn't fall behind us. The atmosphere between her and her brother is much better than the rest of us. In fact, this is just an illusion caused by the self-pitying Luoluo. Of course, she herself cannot detect it. What did Sister Ling tell my brother at that time? That. Ling's answer was a little vague. He asked me if that was the case, and then I said yes. Fortunately, Luoluo was able to understand such a rough explanation, so he didn't ask further questions, making Ling even more embarrassed. I think it's enough to say this, because he is my brother. What about Luoluo? Didn't you make it clear? I don't know either. I believe my brother already knows. It's a shame that you can still trust him now. He obviously hasn't noticed your feelings for so many years. That's because of my own fault, I can't blame my brother. Although it is a fact known to the family, Luoluo is still unwilling to openly admit that she has had such feelings for Aika since she was a child. What's more, she is still his real family member, and this layer of restraint can never break away from Luoluo's heart. Lolo, at that time, you said you wanted to distance yourself from Aika, right? I said so. I don't see the need to do that. Why? If we maintain the same relationship as before, I won't be able to tell what my brother thinks of me. They are equal, Ling told Luoluo accurately, he treats the three of us equally. Because when Aika asked her true thoughts about him, she put herself in the same position as Luoluo and Wei 11. So after slightly adjusting his position, he maintained the same attitude towards Luoluo and Wei 11. I really can't understand. Ling's tone suddenly became rude after she had just finished explaining Luoluo, why should I fall in love with such a boy? Ahaha. Luoluo could only move the corners of his stiff mouth and let out an awkward laugh. It's really weird, isn't it? At first, I just thought he was a little unreasonable. He always wanted to interfere, as if the world revolved around him. But now, just looking at him makes me feel very irritable. This imaginary love, it's completely different. What does Sister Ling imagine love to be like? This is actually love in reality. Luoluo resisted and did not tell Ling this sentence. Ling angrily sat down face to face with Luoluo by the bed and continued talking. It should be that kind of thing, because of various things, two people get closer and closer, and finally they both fall in love. Luoluo had also read some novels focusing on girlish emotions, and some borrowed love guides from her classmates. She immediately knew that the person in front of her had gone too far in her ideals. Even though she cares about Ika very much in her heart, the like she said when asked by Ika was just to get angry with him. Just like Luoluo said like to Ika, it was just because he temporarily forgot his identity as a sister. Perhaps, only Wei 11, who did not hide any secrets and had accepted her own existence, had the courage to express her purest like. Thinking of this, Luoluo, who didn't know whether he was enlightening Ling or Ling was enlightening himself, became even more frustrated. In the long night, the troubled girl and the conflicted girl are still exchanging each other's feelings. You chose him as your master. Lying in the warm quilt, Liu Yin listened to Wei 11, who was lying next to her, finish talking about her experience in the ruins, and just confirmed the sentence. Wei 11 slept on a soft pillow, her long pure white hair spread out and intertwined with Liu Yin's long silver hair. The fingers intertwined in the quilt never let go. Xiaoyan, can I try calling you Lingian? That name. Liu Yin's flushed face could not be seen in the room with the lights turned off. I haven't heard it for a long time, and I'm a bit uncomfortable. Just once, okay. Wei 11 turned over and looked at Liu Yin's side face, which made her feel even more embarrassed. Just once. Yeah. Ring Yin. Liu Yin's hand tightened slightly, but Wei 11 was still happy that she could respond. Hee, I'm a little embarrassed too. The night she came back from the ruins, Wei 11 didn't dare to contact Liu Yin because she felt guilty about her. Although Ika helped her to muster up courage, she was delayed by the events that followed. In the end, Wei 11 just sent a text message to Liu Yin who could not be contacted the next morning. Xiaoyan, I have remembered everything about the Principality of Sentia. I'm sorry to have burdened you for so long. If there is a chance, I would like to meet you. The wish I had at that time has now become a reality. While the two were taking a bath together, Wei 11 apologized to Liu Yin, but she was bullied by her until she lost her strength. 100 years ago, the two people kissed each other during a picnic in the suburbs, and the relationship between them still continues. Liu Yin was originally responsible for this feeling alone, but it was only now that she could be honest with her. I am the sister. But I can't see her sister at all. Xiaoyan, I have someone I like. Who is it? There is no need to ask this question again. But, it seems to have been misunderstood, haha. Have you confessed to him yet? I think, I should have already said. That night, the two exchanged an indefinable contractual kiss under the moonlight. Wei 11 knew that the reason why she would be misunderstood was because she was unwilling to say the key words. With the identity of magic equipment, any request was vaguely mentioned with the word contract. Even if I mustered up the courage to go to his room alone, I still didn't achieve the ideal outcome. That's not ideal. Wei 11 didn't notice that she had said what she was thinking. I didn't say anything. No. So how far have you progressed now? Not yet. What does it mean yet? I may have been misunderstood, I haven't formally confessed yet. I understand what you mean. Liu Yin didn't know what to say to Wei 11. After all, this was a feeling she had never experienced before. After waking up in this world, Wei 11 was the only one left in his heart. I am a little concerned about the boy Ika because he has a connection with Wei 11. So she didn't know how Wei 11, who was in love, was different from herself when facing Ika. If you didn't make it clear, you can just find an opportunity to say it again later, right? What about them? Luoluo and Sister Ling. Wei 11 thought for a while, and finally came to the conclusion of giving up on herself. I can't compare to these two. In this case, we shouldn't lose. Usually girls who talk about this kind of thing are the winners in the end, and girls who help connect two people will eventually become the heroine inexplicably. Is that so? Wei 11 asked dubiously, but, after talking to Xiaoun, I feel confident again. That's right, the plot usually develops like this, so don't worry. Plot. Life is a stage, so it's not wrong to regard various events in life as plot development. Oh. What Liuyan did not explain to Wei 11 was that she learned all her life experiences from novels and operas. The night is long, the girl with worries and the girl with contradictions, their night conversation is not over yet. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 316. The relationship between Lilith and Roosevelt Dell was smooth sailing. Lilith, who played the role of a pure lady, quickly won the favor of her suitor. In just 2 days, Roosevelt Dell seized the opportunity to pursue Lilith, but Lilith just seemed at a loss. Is it really okay to come here and see me every day and put your work aside? The work of the Intelligence Bureau is now mainly divided into various branches for independent management. Although on the surface I am the person in charge, in fact I only have a title. Such a title would arouse the jealousy of many people, but Roosevelt Dell said it casually in front of Lilith as if it were something foreign. What kind of place is the Intelligence Bureau? Is Miss Lilith more interested in that kind of place than flowers, birds, wind, and moon? Lilith didn't know if Roosevelt Dell asked this intentionally or if he saw that he had another purpose. Inducing questions is not Lilith's area of expertise, but at this point in her role-playing, she is absolutely not allowed to reveal any flaws. I don't know much about things in the Empire, and it's degrading to be a noble. Miss Lilith has studied at Frost Moon Academy for 2 years, but her aristocratic style has not faded at all. She is still as dazzling as when we first met. You flatter me. Lilith tried hard not to let her anxiety at the topic being changed be revealed. Although Roosevelt Dell has the support of a family with the surname Fu, the praise of being young and promising is definitely not an exaggeration. The longer the relationship lasts with him, the worse it will be for Lilith. If there is a chance, I would also like to go to Mr. Dell and see you at work. I think I can learn things from you that cannot be learned at Frost Moon Academy. If Miss Lilith is interested, you don't have to find another time. I can take you to visit my place of work now. Rather than showing off your resume in the girl you like in her mansion, it's better to take her to your home court. Roosevelt Dell accepted the ignorant Lilith, and seized the opportunity that he was the only noble who was close to her at the moment, and wanted to use everything around him to win her heart. Lilith's plan went as expected. She entered the intelligence agency building under the personal guidance of Roosevelt Dell, letting everyone there know that she was the target of the top leader. At the end of the day's trip, Lilith bathed and changed under Sarite's clothes, and returned to her own room. The luxuriously decorated large space was completely different from the double dormitory at Shijetsutsu Academy, but now Lilith just wanted to return to the dormitory with Tairuya as soon as possible. Tairuya's sister is the chief director of the Imperial City Intelligence Bureau. If her power is added, it will be of greater help to Ika's plan. But Lilith could no longer involve Tairuya because of her own selfish desires, so she just told Tairuya that she needs to go back to take care of the family temporarily and left Shimizuki Academy. Lilith walked towards her table, her white and light night dress dragging on the floor. After passing through its own magic ripples, the lock on the drawer opened automatically. Opening the drawer, there was his magic tool on the white paper. The cross-star staff was now just a ring-shaped exterior. She looked at it quietly for a while, then picked up the diamond ring and put it on her finger. Even if it ends here, I still want to do something for him, just to say thank you for what happened back then, to this extent. Lilith clasped her hands in front of her chest, as if she was just holding on to something invisible. By telling herself what she wanted to hear, she was able to persevere through the long ordeal. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door, and Lilith quickly took off the ring. But after doing it, she realized it wasn't necessary. This is my own room, not a venue where many people will be watching me at all times. Please come in. Miss Lilith, the person you asked us to investigate has been found. Sarat received specialized education at the Imperial Knight Academy, and she would also pass on information such as espionage within the family to the family head. Lilith took out the few thin pieces of paper from the document bag handed over by Sarat, and Sarat withdrew when she opened the file. She is only responsible for conveying the information and will not try to learn the content of the information. The first thing that caught Lilith's eyes was the photo of the other party, and she frowned slightly. Perhaps because this man worked for the radical wing of the Senate, the first impression was disgusting. With sparse hair and sinister eyebrows, this photo taken secretly from somewhere left Lilith with such a feeling. Next, looking down, in terms of habits, there is a list of real information such as being addicted to alcohol and frequenting romantic places. Imperial intelligence agents without exception have multiple identities, and sometimes they deliberately display different behaviors and habits in order to decorate their identities. So Lilith's initial request was to only need information that could reflect his essence. No matter what it is, it can't arouse Lilith's favor, but this is the kind of person he needs. The position cannot be said to be low, and I don't feel like a very loyal person. These points need to be tested before we can know them. Lilith's current analysis is just to keep them in mind. Roosevelt Dell's itinerary has also been investigated, and we can start taking action tomorrow. Lying in bed after turning off the lights, she repeatedly warned herself not to show lack of sleep tomorrow, but she couldn't fall asleep. This is a dangerous act while walking on a tightrope, and there is no one to catch you if you accidentally slip and fall. Lilith didn't want to affect the family that Ms. Elise had supported because of her own fault. The next day, it started to drizzle in the imperial capital, but the sunlight leaking through the clouds could still be vaguely seen on the horizon. Such weather has become common recently, perhaps due to the gradual onset of summer. Hello, excuse me, is Mr. Dell here? Lilith wore a refreshing yet elegant summer dress and knocked on the door of an office in the Imperial Intelligence Agency. Huh, the officer named Lars raised his head and suddenly showed a straight-eyed expression. You were rude yesterday. Mr. Dell is out of town for something and will not return to the bureau for the time being. Of course, Lilith knew that Roosevelt Dell was no longer in the bureau, so she deliberately found this office. Lars stood up from his seat, rubbing his hands unnaturally. He didn't have to bow to Lilith, who had nothing to do with the Imperial Intelligence Agency, thanks to the side influence brought by Roosevelt Dell. Then I have a headache. Lilith pretended not to know what to do and looked around the corridor. Your Excellency, Dell told me not to wander around here. Can I wait for him to come back here? Please. Rasan smiled and stretched out his hand to signal her to sit down on the sofa, then turned around and made her a cup of black tea. This nodding and bowing attitude is a necessary skill for people who have reached this position. If you can't even curry favor with your superiors, there's no need to continue occupying this position. Thanks. You don't have to be polite to me. You are the guest of His Excellency Dell, and naturally you are also the guest of our Imperial City Intelligence Bureau. Lars put down what he was doing and sat down on the sofa opposite Lilith. Ever since he recognized Lilith's identity, he had always had an unchanging sneer on his face, and his small eyes were narrowed to a slit. Such a smile was full of hypocrisy in Lilith's eyes, and could not be compared with the warm smile she knew. You and Mr. Dell are a perfect match. Hey, is that so? You must have misunderstood. Mr. Dell and I are just ordinary friends. Haha, it seems I misunderstood. Lars kept holding his hand and rubbing it. Lilith didn't like this little gesture. I heard that you just returned to the Bis Empire recently and met Mr. Dell. Knowing that his relationship with Roosevelt Dell was not an imaginary relationship, Russ's questions became somewhat unrestrained. Inquiring into such private matters is a taboo in official circles, and Lilith knew that her position in Lars's heart had declined. Actually, Lord Dell and I have made an agreement a few years ago, and this time it is due to the kindness of Lord Mondell. I see. Since we have such a deep friendship, Miss Lilith shouldn't have to worry too much. Lars is indeed a man who is good at adapting to the changing circumstances. In the conversation just now, Lilith's position must have been basically determined. She and Roosevelt Dell currently do not have a family marriage contract, but they are a very important person to Roosevelt Dell. Then I still have work to do. Miss Lilith is waiting here, please help yourself. Russ smiled and rubbed his hands, stood up, and continued to sit back at his desk. Lilith picked up the teacup and looked at Lars out of the corner of her eye. I didn't feel that his eyes were fixed on me, but the intelligence agent's eyes were not something I could simply detect. Maybe it needs to be more direct. It feels a little hot. Lilith fanned the air with her hands and stood up from the sofa. Sir Lars, can I open that window? Such a small thing. I'll just come. You can do your work first. Before Lars got up, Lilith walked to the window behind him and pushed the window open. Feeling hot was of course a lie, Lilith just needed an excuse to move around freely. She walked behind Lars with her hands behind her back. Then he leaned down slightly and looked at Lars' desk. The ripe fruit wrapped in a thin summer skirt swayed gently in accordance with gravity, but it was not touched by Lars. Is this your job, Sir Lars? She deliberately kept this delicate distance and asked softly in Lars's ear. Lars was obviously disturbed by Lilith's raid. It's just my own business. He did not continue to type on the keyboard, but he also did not hide the contents of the file displayed on the screen. What Lilith wanted to see was not the string displayed on the screen. Precisely because he could not remember the encrypted code and decipher it on the spot even if he saw it, Lars did not panic and hid the internal information of the Imperial Intelligence Agency. During the recent period, it seems that it is basically difficult to meet Mr. Dell because of the incident involving the third princess. Your Excellency Dell is the first person in charge here. It is understandable that he will be very busy at work. Lars glanced at Lilith who was bending beside him from time to time, greedily peeking at the fair skin exposed from the hanging summer skirt. This was done deliberately by Lilith. At least from his disgusting breathing and lustful eyes, we can confirm that the information in the family investigation is indeed his true nature. Is it really because of the third princess that you are so busy? Would you rather leave me behind to see that princess? Miss Lilith, you misunderstood. Lord Dell is not going to see the third princess, and the third princess is not kept in such a close place. Sure enough, this man knew the location of the prison where the third princess was held. But Lilith can no longer talk about Lan Ming. Now she is a woman who confessed her lonely feelings to other men because she was ignored by Roosevelt Dell. Is that so? Yes, so please understand. Lilith felt Lars approaching her quietly, and after her shoulders touched her chest slightly, she quickly returned to her standing position with a blushing face. As long as men who are accustomed to spending money to satisfy their lusts can get a little sweetness, their subsequent actions will be much easier. Physically disgusted with this behavior and blushing, Lilith couldn't hide her blushing. She didn't know if she could arouse Lars' desire with this incomplete teasing. The kind of desire that even dares to take action on the women that the boss likes. Is Mr. Lars also very busy at work? Compared to Mr. Dell, it's much easier, haha. I feel like it's very easy to chat with you. I haven't had the chance to talk to Mr. Dell like this in the past few days. Except for Roosevelt Dell's cronies and members of his own family, no one else knew about the interactions between them in the past 2 days, let alone Lars, who was just an employee of the Imperial Intelligence Agency. This is my honor, haha. Your Excellency Dell probably won't have time to pay attention to me tonight. He hasn't come back yet. Your Excellency Dell may not return to the bureau today. Then why don't you find a time tonight? Lars's face still had the same sneer, but his narrowed eyes were already shining with lust. Where does Mr. Lars usually like to meet? As long as Lars expresses this meaning, Lilith will not give him a chance to go back on his words. Russ directly set the meeting place at the pub, which is consistent with his drinking habits according to the investigation data. If you are there, you don't have to worry about meeting Mr. Dell. I can come and be Miss Lilith's audience. Lars knew about his relationship with Roosevelt Dell, and would never reveal any information to him in order to protect himself. Lilith took advantage of Lars's mentality to boldly have an affair with him. When Lilith agreed, Lars had already decided to accept this noble lady who was pure on the outside but dissatisfied with her inner desires. When she agreed to Russ's temptation, Lilith had already decided to end her relationship with this man tonight. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 317. The bustling streets of the imperial capital create another starry sky with lights on a starless night. Lilith opened the door of the tavern and attracted the attention of some drinkers. It's not unusual for women to come here and their attention is diverted within seconds. Lilith no longer wore a seductive light summer dress, but instead put on ordinary clothes and a hat. In the feasting box, Lars had already prepared Lilith a seat. Can I drink? Just a little bit will do. Then drink a little. Lars poured expensive red wine into the wine glass in front of Lilith. He should know that Lilith was not an adult, but that didn't matter. Lilith obediently picked up the wine glass and took a sip from the rim of the glass. This wasn't her first time drinking, but she definitely couldn't like this pungent taste. I am Miss Lilith's audience tonight. If you have anything to say, just tell me directly. I don't know why, but after seeing you now, I just want to chat more normally. Haha, I have the same idea. Lars raised his glass to Lilith. This is a rare opportunity, we just need to talk about the things between us. The wine glasses filled with light red liquid collided lightly in mid-air, making a crisp sound. Lilith knew that she couldn't get Lars drunk here, so she carefully controlled herself and tried not to consume too much alcohol. She carried 2 medicines on her person that Klaus had been asked to prepare, including medicine for sobering up. Before meeting Lars, she had already taken hangover medicine, but it seemed like she should take this medicine after drinking alcohol. But after meeting, there would be no chance to take the medicine again, so Lilith could only take a small sip each time. In fact, the effect of hangover medicine seems to be very small, and this level is already hovering on the edge of acceptability. I'm sorry, if I keep drinking, I might look ugly. My body is a little hot, but I don't feel dizzy even if I sit down, and I can still stay conscious. After a brief exchange, Lilith felt that the time had come and put down her glass. In Lars' eyes, Lilith was just a drunk girl who wanted to leave as soon as possible. Her cheeks turned red, her eyes wandered, and her tone of voice became full of temptation. Isn't it already too much to drink after just 1 cup? If I get drunk here, I won't be able to go back. Then I'll take you to my place. It doesn't matter if you drink a little more. You don't have to go home tonight, right? Although I have already told the servants at home. Then you don't have to think about it so much. Lars stood up and pulled Lilith up regardless of her thoughts. He threw a stack of biscoins on the table and pulled her out of the box. If she wanted to reject him at this time, Lilith still had room to resist. But there was little point in bringing down Lars in a place like this. The place he was going to go next must be the place he thought was the safest. What Lilith needs is probably hidden there. Lars's motorcycle was parked outside the bar. He pushed Lilith into the car and then got into the driver's seat himself. The motorcycle drove forward along the road. At first, it was a road that Lilith could recognize, and then it drove onto a branch road without street lights. Isn't your home in the South District? Idiot, how can an intelligence agent have a fixed residence? What I want to take you to is just one of the places where I live. Lars slapped the steering wheel and weaved around the lanes and alleys, finally stopping somewhere that seemed uninhabited. Are you sober? It made you laugh. Haha, it seems that I can continue drinking. I said, it doesn't matter how late I stay with you tonight. Mr. Dell shouldn't be able to do that, right? The house Lars took Lilith into was not an attractive place. It seemed like it was just an empty house that had been put on hold because of the recession. But a lonely woman doesn't need any sentiment in the first place. As long as someone can listen to her quietly and chime in with a few words when necessary, it's enough. What's more, Lars's original purpose was not to help Lilith relieve her loneliness. The lighting in the room is a lamp on the ceiling, and the electricity is still on. The layout of the room is quite neat, and at least it has the atmosphere of living in a short period of time. This is a temporary hiding place, where I have lived temporarily. Lars took out new red wine and wine glasses from the cabinet on the wall and placed them in front of Lilith. The reason why Lilith was not brought back to her home was just to avoid being discovered by Roosevelt Dell's spy. That's the apparent reason. Compared with dozens of minutes ago, this is just a different environment. Lars was just waiting for Lilith to take the initiative to put down her defenses and make friends with him, while Lilith was stalling for time with topics. Sir Lars, can you give me a glass of water? The taste of this wine is a bit unaccustomed. Please wait a moment. Lars did not refuse her request and got up to get her some water. The moment he stood up and turned around, Lilith put the pills she had hidden in her hand into his wine glass. The small tablets quickly melted into the crimson liquid, leaving no trace. Lars poured a glass of cold water for Lilith on the counter in the room, while he drank the remaining red wine in the glass. Thanks. Lilith picked up the water glass and secretly observed Lars's reaction while drinking water. He has the habit of drinking all his alcohol in one gulp so that he doesn't have to worry about running out of medicine. As she watched Lars drink the glass of wine, Lilith was faced with a difficult choice. If the medicine does not take effect and the conversation cannot continue to be delayed, it will only be pushed down according to his wishes. If it really gets to this level, I can only politely refuse by expressing physical discomfort, severe coughing, etc. Using topics to delay time has reached its limit. If the effect of the medicine does not take effect. Sir Lars, how much time do you have left tonight? It's still a long time, at least I won't let you sleep now. Hee. Lilith left her seat and sat down beside the bed where the strange man had slept. With such an obvious hint, Lars certainly couldn't sit still. The corner of his mouth revealed a dirty smile that was different from the previous sneer, and he walked towards Lilith step by step. After pushing Lilith down on the bed, he unbuttoned her top one by one. When Lilith was pushed down on the bed, she smelled a terrible smell, as if the sheets had never been washed. But fear now outweighed revulsion, and she kept keeping the moment of abort in her mind. Lars panted heavily, smelling of alcohol, and unbuttoned Lilith's top, revealing purple lace underwear. Lilith shivered unnaturally when her skin suddenly came into contact with the cold air. If you tell him to stop, will he really stop? This was why Lilith suddenly felt scared. Immediately afterwards, Lars's entire weight fell on Lilith. And just lost his movement. Lilith, who had her eyes closed tightly, opened them carefully, and Lars had fallen into a deep sleep on top of her. At this time, the heart that had been hanging in her throat finally sank. Because the sleeping pill is a pharmaceutical product, it takes effect within a few seconds. I don't know if it was because of Lars's physical problem, but this time was extended to more than 10 seconds. Fortunately, it didn't really develop to that point. Lilith soothed her frightened heart and struggled to push away the body pressing on her. Sitting up from the smelly bed, Lilith quickly buttoned her blouse. When buttoning the unbuttoned button, her fingers were trembling so much that she couldn't even aim for the holes. In the silent space, Lilith could clearly hear her rapid breathing and the violent pulsing in her chest. Hurry up. No matter how embarrassed he looks now, at least the first goal must be achieved first. She didn't bother to tidy up her appearance and immediately began to search the room. Information from the family investigation showed that this man had an access key to the database of the Imperial Intelligence Agency and could obtain information from 4 branches at the same time. As long as you get something like this, you can not only know where the third princess was sent, but you can also help in many places. Although the house only has 1 floor, it would still take too long to search it all. Will it be on my body? Although Lilith was extremely resistant to groping from men, she had already made up her mind from the beginning. As long as he doesn't go beyond his own principles and his family's position, he will refrain from doing anything no matter what. She tiptoed back to Lars, who was put down, and checked his shirt and trousers in turn. But there was only money and a few notes in his pocket, and the PDA was also locked. The access key should be a string of numbers or characters, or it may be saved as data. The PDA could only be taken back to the family department for analysis. She forced Russ's PDA to shut down. Then he quickly glanced at the notes found in his pocket, which only recorded things like work logs. "Smelly woman, I knew there was something wrong with you." Lars's voice suddenly sounded in Lilith's ears as she checked the note. Before she could turn around, her hair was pulled from behind. The man slapped Lilith suddenly, then pulled her hair and threw her onto the bed. Lilith's vision went dark due to the pain on her face and back, and she didn't even scream. Lars stood up again and pressed her head on the bed, tearing her top with one hand. "I'm an intelligence agent. If I was drugged so easily, I would no longer be in this profession." The dark magic chains quickly wrapped around Lilith's arms and ankles, binding her limbs to the bed. Lars, who was sitting astride Lilith, tore up the sheets casually, grabbed a ball and stuffed it into her mouth, so that even the cry could not come out. "What are you looking for, miss?" He was obviously just a thin man, but Lilith was still even weaker than her. Because her legs were bound, Lars simply tore her skirt and stockings. "You don't even have any clothes on your body, how are you going to go back, young lady?" The cheeks that had just been slapped by Lars were still red and swollen, and tears were already sliding down uncontrollably. Lars patted Lilith's cheek, and then took out the ball of cloth she was biting. "I think you were sent here by the old conservative guys. Mr. Dell will be very sad when he finds out. It's useless to worry and struggle. If you use magic casually, this man may fight back faster." The officials of the Imperial Intelligence Agency were not as useless as they seemed on the surface, and Lilith felt that she was too naive. "Just stay here and be my pet. Those frivolous women outside have long been tired of it. It would be nice to have a noble lady for a change. If you attack me, the consequences will not be much better for you." "Haha, you are worrying too much. This is the hiding place of the Imperial Intelligence Agency. Even if it is searched, it will not be here. As long as you are left here for a few months, you should be treated as missing, right?" Lars said while stroking Lilith's exposed belly with his rough hands. The chains forged by magical power made Lilith unable to move her hands and feet at all, and it was very difficult to even twist her body. "These few months are enough for you to be pregnant with my child. By then, you will already be wagging your tail and begging me." Lars's hand was already on the last line of defense to protect Lilith. Lilith closed her eyes tightly, and the light summoned by the natural elf never gathered. It turns out that fear can only arouse instinctive resistance, but magic is of no use at this time. She turned her head away in despair, trying not to look at her body. Suddenly, warm liquid spread on the side of Lilith's face. At the same time, I smelled a fishy smell that was different from the bed sheets. Lilith trembled and opened her eyes slightly. Don't open your eyes. The cold scolding scared her to close her eyes again. The weight on his body disappeared and he heard the sound of something falling heavily to the ground. The magic chains binding his hands and feet also disappeared, and then a piece of cloth was thrown on him. Don't do things you can't do, you big-breasted and brainless woman. When the room became quiet and the smell became stronger, Lilith looked at the person who scolded her with trembling eyes. Brad Rossi was holding a huge serrated blade and stood at the corner of the bed looking down at Lilith with blood on her face. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 318. Lilith sat up from the bed wrapped in what looked like the windbreaker that Brad had worn before. The redness and swelling on the side of her face had subsided, but new blood stains were still stuck to it. That's all the blood splattered from Lars' body. Now the lean man with sinister features had turned into a corpse, lying under the bed. Brad's knife directly cut off his carotid artery. From the large blood spatter on the wall, you can understand why Brad told her not to open her eyes. Just the smell of blood made Lilith so sick that she wanted to vomit. If she directly saw the viscous liquid spraying in the air, she would definitely scream even more uncontrollably than when she was pushed. If you really don't plan to rely on anyone, let alone helping the Kins family, they will still be busy trying to save you. Sorry. Lilith decided to tell Brad about today's plan at the last moment last night. The dark fog of the magic weapon Dark Moon originally only absorbed the magic power of the opponent within the range until death. Brad's ability to superimpose light magic on magic equipment also eliminates his own magical aura. He sent people to follow Lilith from the beginning, but tracking did not apply to intelligence agent Lars. So after Lars took Lilith out of the tavern, he began to track Lilith's PDA signal after he cracked it. Lilith herself didn't know that her PDA had been cracked at some point. This was the espionage technology of the Lugo 11 family. What are you looking for? Hurry up and do it. The key to the Imperial Intelligence Agency is a string of numbers or characters. This person should have left a backup somewhere. There's no way that kind of thing should be placed outside the body, right? I thought so too, but he didn't have it on him. You go to other rooms first to see if there is water to wash your face with. I'll turn his body down. Brad tore off the sheets and pulled them over his hands to make crude makeshift gloves. Lilith was still wrapped in her windbreaker and sat on the bed without moving. I'm going to take off all his clothes next. Do you want to stay here until the end? Then I'll search in this room first. I won't look over there at you. Is this woman afraid of walking out of this room alone? Up to you. Brad felt troublesome and scratched his hair, then squatted down next to Lars' body. After Brad began to concentrate on examining the body, Lilith pursed her lips and turned away, taking off her tattered clothes and stockings under the windbreaker and throwing them aside. After buttoning the windbreaker, the hem of the windbreaker extended all the way to Lilith's feet, so that it was impossible to tell that she was wearing nothing but underwear. Now she was not as scared as before, and the aftertaste of fear was getting weaker and weaker with time, but Lilith's tears still flowed out unsatisfactorily. Brad glanced at Lilith, who had just said he was going to search other places, but was still sitting on the bed with her back to him. He hesitated for a moment, but finally said nothing. He took off all the clothes on Lars's body and found no special marks on his skin. It is unlikely that it is hidden on the surface of the scalp where the hair is attached, and there are no traces of possible nail polish treatment. And then, inside the mouth. Lars was not dead long before Brad pried open his mouth with a small wooden stick he picked up from the floor. Evidence tracking is not a course at Frost Moon Academy. Brad's specialty is the pharmacy department, which studies human physiology and pathology. This knowledge is the product of the elite education given to Brad by the Roxy family since childhood, just like the social etiquette that Lilith has memorized by heart. Found it? Among the 2 rows of yellowed teeth, only one canine has a less obvious color difference, making it look more like a denture. Brad concentrated his magic power on his fingertips and used the enhanced power to pull out the denture. The root of the denture is a golden metal rod, and the denture has a small mechanism to remove the metal rod. Is this the key you're talking about? Let me take a look. Lilith took the small golden metal rod from Brad's hand. There seemed to be something engraved on the metal rod, but she couldn't see clearly. Look for other rooms as well. The Lugo 11 family will dispose of the body together with this house soon. But does it really matter if the Lugo 11 family helps me do this kind of thing? It's nothing. This is investigating you in my own name. In the end, just treat it as if there are no results. As for here, it is common for intelligence agents to die in hiding places, and Roosevelt Dell will not care about missing one or two people. It is indeed a very convenient excuse to investigate in one's own name. This kind of entrustment is generally not reported to the family's upper echelons. Lilith also used this method to investigate the information in the Imperial Intelligence Agency without the upper management of the family knowing. Thank you, classmate Brad. I said it was a cooperative relationship, so there is no need to say this to me again. As a result, the house was turned upside down and nothing like the key was found. Lilith took Russ's PDA and the metal rod that Brad found, and contacted Sarah to drive to pick him up at the agreed-upon location. Brad dropped Lilith off on the side of the road and didn't leave until Sarah picked her up in the car. Tonight, a fire broke out in an abandoned house on the outskirts of Eastern District, killing one person unexpectedly. Back to this morning, Pope Sethys met with Ica and others in the sanctuary. The young supreme leader of the Curia had just concluded the Council of Augustus late yesterday. This is not the first time we have met, so I will jump right into the topic. Sethys' single-sided glasses revealed an intellectual light. The Holy See can assist you to save the third princess within its capabilities. Sethys expressed his willingness to cooperate on behalf of the Holy See, which was equivalent to giving Ica the backing to not lose to the power of the Empire. The Bis Empire has always been jointly managed by Augustus and the Holy See. Augustus is composed of the royal family and the Senate, while the Holy See is centered on the Pope, and the two powers are competing against each other. Although it is not visible on the surface, the impact of the third princess's treason on the people is unpredictable. She is an iconic figure in the royal family. Now the royal family has lost its credibility, the radicals in the Senate are raising armaments, and the empire is already on the verge of disintegration. On the edge. Are you willing to assist us for the future of the empire? Whether the third princess premeditated the assassination of the emperor cannot be explained to the public without conclusive evidence. If the Kins family and the Heinz family use their own judgment to unveil the flag for the third princess, I believe it will be at least better than the elders. The hospital's approach is more appropriate. Your Holiness, are you saying that we must act in the name of the family before you can help? Yes, Ling Heinz. I think this suggestion will also help your righteousness, right? I do not agree with the contemporary Pope's rhetoric. Inili. Ica didn't summon Inili, she ran out on her own initiative. Sethys did not show any surprise at Inili's appearance, but his vision under his single-sided glasses became sharper. Why do you think this is analyzing sophistry? Because your proposal is not for the faith that the Holy See has always flaunted and the development of the Bis Empire. It is just for the rights in the empire. Inili flicked her sleeves, unabashedly placing an undisguised purpose on Thetis's head. There was no dissatisfaction or anger on her expression, as if she was just talking about something that had nothing to do with her. I'm sorry, Dad, this person is. You don't need to speak, Way 11. Thetis raised his hand to Way 11 and turned to Inili. Inili stood proudly between Ica and Sethys. Although it was just a virtual image of projection magic, she exuded a strong sense of presence. Faint light particles floated in the room. Lugo carefully reached out and touched the golden particles, and then they disappeared from Lugo's fingertips. What's this? This is the saint's protection. Way 11 explained to everyone, a favor that only knights of the Holy See who have been baptized by the Holy See can accept. Seeing the sudden change in the magic power of the sanctuary, Sethys suddenly realized. That's it, it turns out you are. He stood up from his seat, came to Anili, and leaned down to salute her. The fifth generation Pope of the Holy Realm, Sethys, has an audience with the Holy Lady. Saintess, is Miss Anili a saintly lady? The words Wixi said to Sethys, she was once a knight of the Holy See, she should have saluted like the Pope, but for her, Anili was just someone she had met not long ago. The saint is the one who led humanity to victory during the cross-border war and founded this country, right? Lolo learned all this knowledge from the history class taught by Ridika's tutor. In the cross-border war 100 years ago, the human hero was hailed as the saint by later generations, and she is also the bloodline of the current royal family Ila. Exactly, my name is Anili Ila, and she is the source of the establishment of the Holy See's faith. The long hair that poured down like a violet waterfall extended to the 12 pieces of clothing, and Anili spoke her name solemnly. Women who should not have existed in the world 50 or 60 years ago are now standing in front of everyone through projection magic. Way 11 had not officially left the Holy See and was still accepting the saint's protection at this moment, so she was restless and hesitant about whether to salute this legendary figure like the Pope. Why can the saints in history still talk to us now? Will human lifespan be so long? Way 11 and Lugo were hesitant to ask the question, but Ling asked it for them. The noble body of the Holy Lady is kept underground in the Imperial City Defense Bureau, and her consciousness has been turned into a data stream to serve as the nerve center of the Bis Empire. Professor Coconut, did you know this from the beginning? Of course, I was shocked when I found out. I didn't expect the Imperial City Defense Bureau to still hide such a secret. Professor Coconut, who did not know when she entered the meeting hall, naturally spread her hands. Oh, Coconut, you're here too, so I can save you the trouble of explaining. The Pope agreed to let me accept the commission from the Imperial City Defense Bureau at that time. He should have considered this development, right? Professor Coconut smiled evilly and looked at Sethys, who was finishing the etiquette, leaving all the explanation tasks to him. Indeed. If it's Coconut, I think you would be interested in this kind of thing before agreeing to let you contact the Imperial City Defense Bureau. In the end, I actually did this. After I came out, I felt that I had been deceived by you. But I made an agreement with Anili and I can't go back on it. So you still have such troubles. It seems that my request is causing you trouble. No, without Anili, our troubles would be even greater. The conversation between Professor Coconut and the Saint, who are both Holy See Knights, was not tense at all, like friends they had just met not long ago. Perhaps this was also due to Coconut's cheerful personality. The Pope did not criticize her unrestrained attitude. As the source of the Holy See's beliefs, I have the responsibility to correct the meaning of the establishment of the Holy See. As the founder of the Bis Empire and a bloodline of the Ila family, I also have the responsibility to monitor your actions. Anili Ila turned to Thetis. In her eyes, the youngest pope in history was just an immature child. Pope Sethys, are you really using these children for the Bis Empire? If you say no here, the only people who can be deceived are those children in Anili's eyes. Therefore, Sethys could only acquiesce to Anili's accusation, which was just to explain one point. Considering the current situation, transferring the national faith from Augustus to the Holy See is the most direct way to save this country from chaos. Belief. Xuechaoziji seems to have understood it, but others still seem confused. Can you explain? No. Actually, I'm not very clear either. It's a simple truth. If the third princess is really rehabilitated, it will be the royal family and the Senate who have lost their faith. The people will not care about the conservatives and radicals. At that time, the Holy See will be the new one to replace them. A pillar. Kokona is a genius girl, and her head is still spinning rapidly in fields other than magic mechanics. Pope Sethys never told anyone about his plan, but carried it out steadily behind the scenes, including contact with the Heinz family. My Lady Saint, please decide the fate of the Holy See and the Bis Empire. If you don't make a decision, the one who should make the decision is the son of the two major families that the Holy See relies on. I accept the assistance of the Holy See. Although I have not considered the national level, if you don't object, in Italy, it means that there are only two outcomes, success and failure, right? Looking at it now, apart from the fact that Pope Sethys' ambition is not worth promoting, there are other merits. Wherever my brother wants to go, I will go with him. I will also follow Brother Ika. We have all come here, and it is unreasonable to say that we want to go back now. Linko expressed her attitude, but Your Holiness the Pope, I still have questions to ask you. The liberation of the Heinz family. If you think now is the right time. Sethys stretched out his hand to the hesitant Ling, indicating that she could make her own decision. Ling crossed her fingers on her knees, the expression on her face changed many times, and finally sighed as if she was letting out the conflicts accumulated in her heart. Can you make sure they're all okay? I can assure you of this. Forget it then, wait until all the current troubles are dealt with before picking them up. Ika listened to her words, and even he could feel the heavy emotions contained in them. Ling is different from a year ago. She has learned to control her personal emotions and will no longer stubbornly change her surroundings to follow her ideals. Ika could not guarantee whether the riot would last a month, half a year, or even a year. Ling carried the cross in her heart and walked through the year that extended from the past. Although Sethys' promise freed her heart, the fact that nothing had changed still could not be simply put behind her mind. The four people, representing the two declining families known as the Twin Towers of Bis, signed an underground contract with the Holy See in this solemn meeting hall. End La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 319. Okay, I understand. Thank you for your hard work, Sarit. No, Miss Lilith, please take care of yourself. Sarit conveyed what could be said to be the worst news to Lilith, and a strong sense of exhaustion hit her heart. After the maid she was close to left the room, Lilith slammed the table hard. Although the hands clenched into fists could not exert much strength, the heartbreaking pain was still clearly transmitted back to Lilith's nerves. She bit her lip tightly, her reluctance not turning into any words, but just echoing repeatedly in her heart. What's the point of these days? Even though no one would hear her rude roar and no one would see her holding her head with messy hair, she still couldn't let go of her last bit of self-esteem. The metal rod Brad found from Lars's denture was indeed the key to access the Imperial Intelligence Agency, but it has now become an ordinary metal rod without any value. Family agencies analyzed Russ's PDA and access key and concluded that the code was associated with the holder's vital signs. In other words, once Lars is dead, the access key loses its usefulness. The person who killed Lars was Brad, and Lilith had no right to accuse him of being reckless. If he didn't take action at that time, he wouldn't be able to go back to the room and worry. It has been 4 days since I returned to the Imperial capital. Apart from leaving a psychological shadow that was almost tainted, I have made no progress. Ika-san and the others must not be able to wait any longer. The shadow of last night still lingered in her heart, and today Lilith had to bite the bullet and meet Roosevelt Dell, who was worried about her coming. He heard that Lilith went to Lars's office yesterday, and that Lars was burned to death in the hideout at night. Only then did Roosevelt Dell take the initiative to come to Lilith's mansion to inquire about the situation. Lilith pretended not to know anything, saying that she only went to other rooms to wait for him because he was not in the bureau. Lars hid his and Lilith's whereabouts perfectly, and Roosevelt Dell didn't seem to connect his death with Lilith. By the way, after I came back, I heard that the third princess was now deprived of her royal status. I didn't expect such a big thing to happen while I was away. Miss Lilith's family has always had little contact with political affairs. You just now know that this is normal. As for the third princess's sentence, I think it will be announced to the public soon. Such a major change occurred in August, and now it is said that the empire and the kingdom are preparing to go to war again. Will the imperial capital soon become an unsafe place? Don't worry, Miss Lilith, the war will never spread to the imperial capital. You just need to listen to the good news from the front line. With your words, I can rest assured, haha. When will the war begin? I believe that as long as the third princess and the Tiberai kingdom's premeditated plan is investigated clearly, the imperial army will go to war against the Tiberai kingdom. I see. Miss Lilith, don't worry too much, political affairs are really not suitable for you. If you still feel uneasy, I will try my best to spend time with you. Your Excellency Del, your official duties will be more arduous during this period, right? Please be sure to lead the empire to victory. I don't want my personal reasons to take away your time from working for the country. Roosevelt Del finally managed to deal with it, and Lilith also obtained information about Lan Ming's disposal. If the third princess is falsely accused, then her execution day will be when the empire's military preparations are complete. There was no time left for her to sit in the mansion where the war could not spread and wait for the news. Yesterday's adventure also made her aware of her naivete. Using the same method again may be effective, but it may be in vain. The tight time did not allow Lilith to continue to obtain information from the grassroots, and she made a more risky decision than yesterday. Faustin, the Minister of Military Affairs of the BZ Empire, has full control over the military affairs of the BZ Empire. He was a well-known Iron General in the BZ Empire. He was determined not to take a political position, but he had been sitting firmly in this position that was coveted by countless nobles for decades. Faustin, like Lilith's family, remains neutral and is a highly respected figure among both conservatives and radicals. Lilith hoped to be able to connect with him, but as an ordinary noble, she had no contact with such a big shot. She could only ask the Luo 11 family once again. Luoshi's family is located in the upper echelons of the army and has close contacts with Faustin. Fortunately, one day later, Faustin's family will invite other Fu families in their territory to participate in the dance. Your Excellency Faustin, my long-awaited greetings. You are the eldest son of the Luo 11 family. You are rarely seen on such occasions. Why are you so interested today? I made you laugh. In fact, I came here with this young lady today. Lilith, who was behind Brad, stepped forward dignifiedly, holding a decorative red wine in her hand. Oh, this lady is. I am honored to be invited by you and the Luo 11 family this time, and I would like to take this opportunity to say hello to you. Well, yes, Addison's daughter has grown up so big now. Eh? Does Mr. Faustin know my father? It is not that Faustin has no impression of Lilith, but this impression comes from her deceased father. Your Majesty was my most capable subordinate. It is a pity that he died in the battle to suppress the association. I believe my father will be very happy when he hears what you said. Lilith was originally worried that her appearance would be too abrupt, but she didn't expect to get in touch with the Iron General in an unexpected place. Brad gestured slightly to Faustin from behind Lilith, and then left Lilith alone here. He accepted Lilith's commission only to introduce her to Faustin, and then it was her own mission. Faustin had little contact with Lilith's family, and most of his conversations with Lilith were about her father's past. Lilith has never learned about these past events from Ms. Elise, and it is also a past that she wants to know very much. The conversation between Faustin and her was like a grandpa bragging to his granddaughter about the glorious past. Lilith had no idea that the conversation between the two could be so relaxed. Lilith's conversation with Faustin came to an end, as he had other guests to entertain. Thank you for telling me about my father's past today. It's nothing, I just suddenly felt that I am getting older, and I can also feel emotional about the past. Maybe I saw his shadow in you. Lilith bowed slightly to Faustin and turned to leave. Today she was wearing a long white dress with a tail that reached the carpet. When she turned around, she accidentally stepped on the hem of her skirt. Ah! The red wine in her hand spilled from the glass and splashed onto Lilith. On the white chest, dark red wine stains gradually spread. Faustin saw the scene and called the nearby maid over with his eyes. Take her to the mansion to change into a set of clothes. Yes. Miss, please come with me. It is the responsibility of the banquet host not to let your guests make a fool of yourself at the banquet. Faustin arranged it while only a few people noticed. Lilith, who was served by the maid in the mansion and changed into a new dress after taking a bath, did not return to the venue immediately. She stayed in the living room of the mansion on the grounds that she wanted to take a rest. Lilith sat down on the sofa. So far, everything was as planned. Accidentally stepping on the hem of his skirt and pouring red wine on himself can attract Faustin's attention. Even without a father's relationship to connect the two, such a script can achieve the desired effect. But her next plan became overwhelmed by unexpected developments. Facing the absolutely neutral Iron General, women's weapons may not necessarily be effective. Moreover, during the conversation with Faustin just now, Lilith became unwilling to use such despicable methods to gain his trust. Miss Lilith, how are you resting? Faustin, who left the venue midway, learned from the servant that Lilith was now in the drawing room, so he pushed the door open and entered. Lilith quickly stood up from the sofa. Thank you for your relationship. Your ugly behavior just now made you laugh. It's okay, just sit down if you still need to rest. After speaking, Faustin prepared to leave the living room, allowing Lilith to stay here quietly. After he returned to the venue, the possibility of meeting again became slim, but Lilith was not yet sure what she should say. Faustin had already opened the door, and it would close again in a few seconds. In desperation, Lilith could only choose to make a desperate move. Sir Faustin, can I spare a moment of your time? She still stood where she was, showing no signs of exhaustion that meant she needed to sit down and rest. Faustin did not go out of the drawing room door. He closed the door again and remained in the house. At least he was willing to stay and listen to himself. At this point, Lilith could only continue to speak boldly. Can you please tell me where Princess Lan Mingyila is currently being held? I want to meet her. The third princess is now a felon in the empire and cannot meet anyone. Just give up this idea. Don't you think it's strange, Mr. Faustin? It's possible that the third princess was just wrongfully accused. Miss Lilith, let me kindly remind you. The moment you say this, I have sufficient reason to arrest you. If you remove me as a threat just because I question the Senate's judgment, you cannot be called absolutely neutral. Ha, you are an eloquent little girl. A calm smile appeared on Faustin's face, and he was not disturbed by Lilith's immature provocation. After you know the position of the third princess, you will not only and is it so easy for her to meet. I want to become an upright noble like my father and Lord Faustin. If the Senate wants to go to war with the kingdom of Tiberi, it will inevitably sacrifice the third princess. Can you really accept this approach? Faustin's mouth, covered in white beard, opened and closed, but did not give Lilith an answer. Ever since he was called Iron General and took his current position, no one has dared to question himself like the little girl in front of him. Faustin, who has dealt with countless powerful people, can see the panic and fear behind Lilith at a glance, and there is also an uncompromising persistence there. Perhaps she is a child who has not yet stepped into the turbid current, and the little girl who has not yet grown up has seen more things that her old and dim eyes have blinded. Addison, you will definitely regret not having the opportunity to see your daughter what she is like now. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 320. Zi Ming was promoted to the throne by the radical faction of the Senate, but in reality she was still confined to a wheelchair. In the bedroom of the suburban castle, the vases on the wall, the murals on the wall, the quill inserted upside down on the desk, are all familiar things that have been with me for several years. The so-called things are different and people are different, a word that could only be read in books, Zi Ming didn't understand until now. Sir Aizian, there is nothing I need to ask you to do here for now. It doesn't matter if you go back to your room to rest first. Thank you for your kindness, Her Royal Highness. This was my habit when I served Her Royal Highness the Third Princess. Please forgive me if it disturbs you. No. I didn't mean that. Zi Ming could only give up once again to persuade Xiaoluo to leave his room. The reason for persuading her to leave was not because she would hinder him here. Just because he sees the night lady who is often beside him, he will think of the little maid who has left the imperial capital. Anja was resigned from her post and sent back to her hometown on the border. This is the decision of the Senate, and Zi Ming can do nothing for Anja except giving her a large sum of money. Ahem. Please use. Thanks. Taking the potion prepared by the imperial pharmacist from Charlotte's hand, she thanked him with some hesitation. Charlotte can also have what she needs at her fingertips at any time, just like Anja. So Zi Ming was reluctant to accept her help. If you do this, it will seem as if Anja's existence is gradually being replaced. Zi Ming and Xiaoluo had known each other since childhood with the help of Lan Ming's relationship, but the relationship only remained between the royal family and the nobility. Your Excellency Aizian, do you know where my illness comes from? I'm sorry, I'm not very clear. Xiaoluo took the empty bottle of medicine from Zi Ming's hand and waited quietly for her explanation. Then do you know what the Imperial Sister's Candle Dragon Gold ability is? Her Royal Highness the Third Princess's magical equipment ability is magic synchronization, which can amplify and dispel the effects of magic. Lan Ming's magical equipment ability is not a secret. Candle Dragon Gold is equivalent to a powerful weapon that has expanded exponentially and has become one of the weapons of the BZ Empire. The magic costume I inherited is the other half of the Candle Dragon Gold that originally belonged to the Imperial Sister. What do you think its ability will be? The splitting of the magic suit into two parts may be an isolated case in the mainland, and your ability has not been spread to the outside world. I think it may be an ability similar to that of the Third Princess. Zi Ming's magical costume ability has never been shown to the public. Over the years, it has become a secret known only within the royal family. A self-deprecating smile appeared on Zi Ming's lips, because his ability was not at all like the magic that brought morale to the army like the Imperial Sister. Your Excellency Aizian is probably half right. Sister Wang's Candle Dragon Gold is resonance, while my Candle Dragon Gold is anti-resonance. Can you understand this explanation? Can the magic be eliminated? It is not surprising that the same magical equipment is divided into two bodies, and their abilities are completely opposite. Yes, what do you think of this ability? I think your ability and the ability of Her Royal Highness the Third Princess complement each other. They are also very powerful magic. Xiaoluo just wanted to simply comment on the ability to directly affect the opponent's magic, but unexpectedly the sentence angered Zi Ming. Would you still think so if I used this ability on you? Zi Ming's tone became a little rougher unknowingly. Perhaps she herself was not aware of her emotional changes. Charlotte was secretly alarmed by her sudden change of tone. After thinking more about it, she understood why her compliments angered the princess. From Xiaoluo's delay in responding to his question, Zi Ming noticed that his words and deeds just now were definitely not in line with the proper attitude of a royal family. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I apologize to you as a member of the Yila family. Zi Ming turned the wheelchair to face Xiaoluo, and bowed towards her while sitting in the wheelchair. Xiaoluo quickly lifted her shoulders. It was not allowed to directly touch the royal body, but Zi Yiming, who needed to be taken care of even to move, was an exception. Moreover, she believed that the person who needed to apologize was not Her Highness the Princess, but herself, who thoughtlessly praised an ability that she hated. My ability can completely eliminate the magic power required for life, but it cannot be synchronized like the Imperial Sister, which means that I cannot freely choose the target of the magic. As long as this ability is used, all life within the magic range will die. Not only life requires magic power, but the changes of all things depend on the flow of invisible magic power. Completely removing the magic from an area is tantamount to turning that area into a wasteland. Charlotte's evaluation is not wrong. This is an absolutely powerful ability, so powerful that even the enemy has no chance to surrender. But precisely because this kind of magic is so powerful that it should even be listed as an ethical taboo, it is not an ability worth showing off. Is Her Highness the Princess body also caused by the ability of the magic suit? My magic equipment cannot be completely controlled by me, so it will affect me from time to time. After saying so many words, Zi Yiming coughed softly again. But she gently covered her mouth with her hand and signaled to Charlotte not to worry about herself. Knowing the forbidden ability that Augustus had kept hidden, Xiaoluo also understood the reason why Zi Yiming was so weak. Her magic outfit Candle Dragon Gold constantly eliminates the magic power she needs. Although it is not life-threatening, it still poses a considerable threat. My ability has always been regarded as an obsolete ability in August. Only the ability of the Imperial Sister can represent the meaning of the existence of the royal magic equipment. Please allow me to understand without authorization, the ability of Her Royal Highness the Third Princess requires your ability to complement each other in order to achieve perfect magic synchronization, so your ability must have its own meaning. No wonder Sister Huang likes you so much. This was not the first time that he heard Charlotte's consolation. The first time I heard such comfort was from Lan Mingyila, my sister. Although Charlotte's words were exactly the same as what he heard at that time, they still calmed the waves in his heart a little. Zi Yiming told her these words just to let her know that her body was only affected by the ability of the magic suit, and it was not a serious illness that required someone to take care of her at all times. But now, facing Charlotte, who knelt on one knee in front of her and held the hands on her knees in her palms, she became speechless again. The girl in front of him who is younger than him cannot replace Anja's place in his heart. But her existence here now must have the meaning of her existence. Zi Yiming felt the soft warmth in the girl knight's hand and accepted her presence in his heart. After Ika received the text message from senior sister Lilith, she immediately asked Liuyan to help her send a message to Sethys. Senior Lilith already knows the location of Lan Ming. She is now imprisoned in the prison in the border city of Rosenberg. The text message was received at 9 o'clock in the evening, and the Holy See prepared their transportation within half an hour. First, take a small airship to the border city of Rosenberg. Then there will be a locomotive arranged to enter the city. As for how to use it, it is all up to Ika and the others. The small airship does not need an airport and can rise and fall freely. It only needs an open space to accommodate it. The volume and passenger capacity are naturally greatly reduced, but it is enough for the 4 of them and several members of the Holy See. The motorcycle is an indispensable means of transportation during the prison robbery and will be waiting for their use in the plains outside the city. The Holy See can only provide so much assistance when Ika and the others rescue the third princess, but it can save them a lot of time and directly break into Rosenberg at night. If you're lucky, you can return to Shimizuki Academy before dawn. You are really optimistic. There are only 8 hours from now until dawn. It would be great if the princess can be rescued so smoothly. Brother and sister Ling, can you two be a little nervous? When Wei 11 and I were at Tiburai Royal Academy, the 6 hours that night felt very long, right? That night? When is that night? Ling's eyes became sharp again, and Ika suddenly felt as if she hadn't seen her look like this in a long time. It was the night I was arrested by others. Sister Ling, Brother Ika, please make it clear. You only feel that time is long as the people who were caught. Now we are intruders. Luoluo really couldn't understand why the two of them were joking at this time. If it were him, he wouldn't be able to laugh at all. Luoluo, don't keep a sullen face all the time. The more nervous you are, the more likely you will stumble. Liuyan said so before we set off. But my brother was still so anxious before, and suddenly he can't even make me relax. Lolo, I feel like you've been a little irritable lately. Has it come to that day? No. Why did Sister Ling start telling dirty jokes like my brother? Eh? Brother, did I tell you any dirty jokes? I just didn't say it in front of me, so it must be like this. Luoluo, do you have any prejudice against me, my brother? It turns out that you are not like this. Don't get serious all of a sudden, it's disgusting. Why are you targeting me too? Stop arguing, the people on the airship were looking at us just now. Speaking of which, the people who work with the Holy See still respect Xiao 11 very much. After all, she is the highest ranking Night Lady, right? Ling took up what Luoluo said and teased Wei 11 until her cheeks turned red. Now I am no longer in the Holy See, and I am only Brother Ika's. The word was about to blurt out, but Wei 11 tried hard to swallow it. Ika didn't want to hear herself say that, so she just thought of him as her master. Luoluo's expression still looked a little unhappy because she couldn't let go now, but she didn't think the current relaxed atmosphere was inappropriate. She knew that laughter could only exist in the time before the battle. It was precious but could not be forced to stay. This, if you can accept it? Luoluo's heart was full of contradictions, which had been entangled in her heart since before departure. If you can accept it, can you let go? No, it will never be like that. If we can accept this kind of life as a matter of course, we cannot change the future that may go wrong somewhere. The Holy See's small airship departed from the Holy Land, cleverly avoided the airspace surveillance of the city passing through, and landed outside the border city. Starting from the delivery of the information that Senior Lilith worked so hard for, no matter what the outcome is, this ridiculous smuggling trip will come to an end. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 321. Charlotte pushed Zi Ming's wheelchair out of the large bathroom in the castle. When she first came to Zi Ming, she never asked herself to help push the wheelchair. She always used the magic drive to drive in front of her. This was the first time that Zi Ming allowed himself to help her travel. Xiaoluo still didn't know what had happened to her mood. At least, this changes in a good direction, and Her Royal Highness is willing to accept herself as a servant. When they reached the hall of the castle, the entire building suddenly shook with a huge sound of destruction coming from a distance. At the same time, the hurricane swept from the castle stairs raged in the hall, and the imperial guards arranged by the Senate in the castle were slapped against the wall in an instant. The wildly dancing wind wall raised pale white magic dust, and the visibility in the field of vision was greatly reduced. Scarlet Blade Spiral. In an instant, Xiaoluo summoned his magic equipment to draw a square array around his and Zi Ming's wheelchairs. Only the middle part is the gripping part, and the two ends of the short handle are connected to a huge spiral blade that flashes red light. The hurricane did not invade the interior of the phalanx and disappeared quietly when it touched the edge of the phalanx. Sir Aizian, I'm very sorry, my ability cannot be used here. The holder of the magic equipment can clearly feel the fluctuations of other magic equipment, so Zi Ming also noticed it. If the anti-resonance of Candle Dragon Gold is used in the castle hall, all life here except Zi Ming will die. I will protect your safety, Your Highness. Charlotte Azurn, I'm not here to fight you. At the outer edge of the square formation, the figure of a strange girl suddenly appeared. Her cheeks still reveal a childish temperament, Her soft short hair that reaches her shoulders is tied into a lively short ponytail on the side, and her skin is as pure and dazzling as the morning snow. However, she was wearing black tights and suspenders that did not match the impression of innocence, which highlighted her immature body and the 6 thin wings on her back. "Are you an elf?" Charlotte raised the scarlet blade spiral horizontally to protect Zi Ming within his sight, and at the same time quickly scanned the castle hall. The Imperial soldiers who were hit by the hurricane were struggling to get up, but they were in a panic as if they were looking for something, as if they didn't see the 3 people right in front of them. My hallucinations can only last until the Imperial knights who were lured away come back. Can you please listen to what I have to say first? The unidentified elf girl looked really anxious, and it was clear that she was the one who made the castle hall a mess. Your Excellency Aizian, just follow her request and listen to her words first. Your Highness. That's great, I was worried that if there was a conflict. The elf girl breathed a sigh of relief and stroked her chest, which seemed too natural. Charlotte had to be careful that her words and actions were all to make her relax her vigilance. Is the wind here your ability? Can you stop it first? The mechanical short crossbow in the hand of the elf girl exudes the unique magic power of the magic suit. It is not surprising that she could raise her hand to pull the trigger on Zi Ming at any time. Hearing Charlotte's words, she waved the short crossbow in her hand several times in a panic. You misunderstood. I won't use this. What she got in exchange for her defense was the spiral tip of the scarlet blade pointed straight at herself. Although she just wanted to convey that she had no hostility, wielding the magic costume so carelessly would of course lead to misunderstanding. What I want to say is that the Kins family and the Heinz family have now set out to rescue the 3rd princess. The names of these 2 large families had long been buried in history, and only a group of people could emerge in Charlotte's mind. Your Excellency Aizian, do you know the people she mentioned? When that group of people caused an uproar in August, Zi Ming was not present. Xiaoluo simply answered Zi Ming's question, but his mind was filled with questions that suddenly poured out. Now he should concentrate on facing the elf girl who suddenly appeared, but the name he had not seen for a long time also lingered in his mind. Someone asked me to assist in their plan, which is to bring Charlotte Aizian near the prison where the 3rd princess is held. Zi Ming could see the inner shake of the elf girl from her expression, so this time it was her who asked the question in person. How should I address your excellency? I'm sorry, it's inconvenient to tell you this. I see, then I want to know who is behind you, but you can't tell me, right? I'm sorry, but I really won't do anything unnecessary. I didn't want to come here originally, but... Are you just planning to ask Mr. Aizian to assist those 2 families in their plans as requested above? Yeah, that's just what I thought. When answering this question, the elf girl did not hesitate, and her answer was approved by Zi Ming. She raised her head from the wheelchair and looked at Xiaoluo, who was holding a gun to protect herself. The confusion in her heart had already been told to Zi Ming through her expression. Your Excellency Aizian, I believe she is not lying. If you want to save the Imperial sister, just go with her. The person I want to protect now is Her Royal Highness the Princess. Charlotte didn't notice that her answer only put Zi Ming first, and naturally did not deny her desire to rescue the 3rd princess from prison. After protecting me in this castle, will August's current situation change? On the other hand, there is no worse choice than staying with me. Zi Ming truly accepted Xiaoluo a few hours ago, and now of course he was not trying to drive her away from him. For Charlotte, there is someone more important than herself waiting for her. If Zi Ming fell into the same situation as her sister, at that time, she must have hoped that the little maid who didn't know how to fight could come to rescue her. Charlotte flexibly rotated the tip of the spiral spear and cut away the hurricane as sharp as a blade. The hurricane that was raging in the castle hall was separated by the phalanx formed by the scarlet blade spiral cutting through the space, and had to stop. Her Royal Highness the fourth princess is over there. Protect Her Royal Highness the fourth princess. Who is fighting with Her Majesty Izian now? The elf girl jumped out from the wind wall and stepped on the void continuously, pulling the trigger of the mechanical short crossbow towards Charlotte in mid-air. Invisible whistles of wind were fired from the short crossbow, but they were blocked by the spiral of the scarlet blade that was swung like a toy, and were sucked into the cut-off phalanx in the air. The 6 wings flapping on the back of the elf girl were just the embodiment of magic power, and had no ability to help her fly. She just stepped on the wind wall and stayed in mid-air. Your Excellency Izian, please hold on a little longer. The top knights will come for reinforcements soon. Imperial soldiers have protected Ziming. In fact, such a small number of people is not a threat at all in the eyes of the elf girl. But she did not change her target to Ziming, whose defenses had become empty, but concentrated on dealing with the girl knight who was currently the greatest threat. Star Crossbow Daneb. The tornado that rolled up from the ground in the castle hall instantly destroyed the solid pillars, and the huge space suddenly rolled up falling earth and rocks. Charlotte nimbly dodged the flying rocks that fell on her, but when her gaze returned from the broken pillar to mid-air, the figure of the elf girl disappeared from its original position. Hallucination. In order to adopt a defensive posture, she habitually took a step back, but her small body wrapped in a black tight suddenly flashed in front of her. Charlotte, who had no time to defend herself, was hit in the lower abdomen by a magic-strengthened knee. The unconscious body fell to the ground, and the scarlet blade spiral that slipped from her hand also lost its magic connection and shattered into magic particles. Your Excellency Izian. Ziming called to the unconscious girl knight with a worried look on his face. The imperial soldiers who protected Ziming looked at the battle that was not on the same level as themselves. No one dared to step forward to help Xiaoluo. The elf girl was not attracted by the mournful cries behind her, and walked towards the fallen Charlotte, while raising the mechanical short crossbow towards her. This move can only be understood as her wanting to completely remove this obstacle. Charlotte was now unconscious and defenseless. The person you want to protect now is not me. I order you to stop that person. But these imperial soldiers looked embarrassed when facing Ziming's order. They were just sent by the Senate to monitor the actions of the fourth princess and the eldest daughter of Aizian. There was no need to go all out. At this time, a magical light was shot from the top of the castle stairs, targeting the elf girl who had her back turned to the direction of the attack. But she also sensed the attack coming from behind, and used the raised wind wall to protect her back without looking back. Great, the knight is back. The imperial soldiers who were ordered by Ziming to die immediately showed expressions of being saved, while the imperial knights who were distracted by the explosion on the top of the castle had just launched a warning attack. Stop using your ability immediately, otherwise you won't be merciful next time. Among the several knights of the imperial knights, 2 of them hold magic armor, and the elf girl has entered their attack range. But she did not obey the instructions and put down the weapon obediently. Instead, she took the unconscious Charlotte at her feet as a hostage. Don't come over. He could hear his voice trembling as he shouted, so it was impossible not to be scared in such a situation. The knight saw that the ones she held hostage were the daughters of Aizian and did not continue to narrow the encirclement. Do not be afraid. Pointing the mechanical crossbow at Charlotte at her feet, the elf girl murmured in a voice that only she could hear, reminding herself that she could not continue to show cowardice in front of the enemy. She took out a round glass bottle the size of a fingernail from under her black tights and quickly smashed it on the ground. It was already too late when the knights discovered the elf girl's intention. It took less than 2 seconds for the transfer magic circle to go from unfolding to closing. The elf girl in black tights and the kidnapped Charlotte both disappeared from the place and were transferred to a transfer magic circle that was not known to be set up in Augustus or the imperial capital. Seeing that the elf girl and Xiaoluo had successfully separated, Ziming breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. At least until now, the identities of the attackers and hostages have not been revealed, and the small script planned by the three people is proceeding smoothly. End La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 322. Rosenberg is one of the southern border cities, a rural town that has not yet experienced intensive development and was transformed into the important frontier city it is today. A few years ago, the lord of this land was disposed of by Zi Mingyila due to corruption and bribery, and now the land is under the management of August. The moat separates the inside and outside of the city wall, and the cable suspension bridge is the only way to normally enter Rosenberg. Lolo, we are about to reach the checkpoint. Ika slowed down the car and drove slowly onto the suspension bridge. No one among the four had any experience in driving, and Ika could only barely make it move forward. The driver was Ika, Luoluo was sitting in the passenger seat, and Ling and Wei 11 were sitting in the back seat. Luoluo looked at the city wall that was getting closer and closer, and held Orchid Heart's hand harder on his chest. The aqua blue pendant exudes warmth in the palm of her hand, so she will definitely respond to him. Luoluo just needs time to adjust his mentality now. There is a tight barrier guarding the city gate. Although Wei 11 and Ling can easily break through this level of defense, they cannot cause a commotion yet. Ika stopped the motorcycle at the city gate, and four Imperial soldiers guarding the gate walked towards the motorcycle with firearms produced by magic machinery. Coming. Ika reminded Luoluo in a low voice while rolling down the car window. Imperial soldiers surrounded the doors on both sides with guns in hand, leaning down to observe the inside of the motorcycle. As long as Ling and Wei 11 sat in the back seat, they looked like just ordinary girls. Although the four of them are already well known in August, the young soldiers assigned to the border of the Empire will definitely not know about it. Please show me your August pass. We are in an extraordinary period recently, and some rebels are trying to enter the country. We ask for your understanding. Pope Sethis already knew that the radical faction of the Senate would strengthen Rosenberg's security. Vatican passes could not be used here, and it was impossible to sneak in unnoticed. The Holy See, who was not yet ready to show off its edge, did not give them a forged Augustus pass because there were easier ways to pass this level. I'm sorry, we don't have a pass yet. Can you pretend you didn't see it and let us pass secretly? The orchid heart in Luoluo's hand became warmer, and the ability of absolute kingship was being activated. It was clear that he could issue orders to these imperial soldiers with more confidence, but there was no confidence in Luoluo's tone as he forced a smile. Ika's hands never let go of the steering wheel. If Luoluo's ability has no effect. I understand, we don't know that anyone passed here, and the surveillance records will be replaced. The Imperial soldiers who were requested by Luoluo were not as stiff as they imagined, turning into puppets on strings, but simply accepted Luoluo's request simply and naturally. After the barrier of the city gate was temporarily lifted, Ika drove the motorcycle through the outer city gate smoothly. It wasn't until some distance away from the city gate that voices appeared in the silent car. This is the first time I have seen such a convenient ability. Before seeing Luoluo's ability with her own eyes, Ling could not imagine that it would be so smooth. From the rearview mirror hanging in front of the car, Ling saw Luoluo put away her stiff smile. She didn't look proud at all. Luoluo, I know you don't like this ability. What I mean is that with this ability, you don't need to just fight to solve problems. You should be more proud. Sister Ling, it's okay. Luoluo closed her eyes in the rearview mirror. At least he couldn't see the sad look in her eyes. This is using the ability for the right thing, so the uncomfortable feeling will also become lighter a little. To make Luoluo proud of Orchid Heart's ability, of course it's not so simple to say it and make her accept it with a smile. Ling just didn't want to watch her use her abilities to help everyone with this expression. She thought that Ika must have thought the same way. If she had to show this expression, it would be better not to use this ability to force a breakthrough. This is the outer circle, right? Luoluo, Please help me look at the map on how to go. Okay. Aika did not make any comment on Lolo's ability to be used for the first time in front of everyone. Although in the afternoon before leaving the administrator's cabin, Aika talked to herself a lot. I thought he would say something more or less. Lolo opened the map on the PDA with a little entanglement. Brother Aika, why don't we stay in the outer circle? There is no time to stop here, didn't Sethis say that? The Senate may have started sending people here now. Before the small airship left the sanctuary, Sethis reminded everyone not to stay in Rosenberg for a long time. The radical faction of the Senate had already noticed the movements of the Holy See. It's just that they don't have the right to control the Holy See, so they will turn to strengthen the control of Rosenberg. Judging from the guards at the city gates that have just entered the outer circle, entry into this frontier city has been restricted to those allowed by the Senate. Brother, you have to turn left at the intersection ahead. How long does it take to get from here to the inner city gate? Look at the distance on the map, it will probably take about 10 minutes. Aika, who was driving a motorcycle for the first time, had no time to look at the map. He could only focus on the road ahead. There aren't many people in the outer residential areas at this time. There shouldn't be many places like the Imperial Capital and Shigetsuki Academy. Don't speed up suddenly if there's no one around, Aika. Ling leaned on the back of her seat and looked at the street where there was only a street light at a distance. The outer circle of Rosenberg is the city where local residents live, and the inner circle is said to have been the Lord's castle, which was later taken back and rebuilt by Augustus. However, this quiet feeling can make you feel more at ease. Does Wei 11 think so too? I like this quiet feeling. Wei 11's eyes showed a nostalgic look. It turns out that my country also looks like this at night. Yeah. I'm sorry for making the atmosphere heavy. No, I didn't say anything just because I didn't want to disturb you. Aika continued to listen to Lulu's guidance while listening to the voices of the two people talking in the back seat. It was approaching midnight and there were no new people on the road, which made it a lot easier for Aika, who was driving for the first time. Lulu, were you scared just now? Are you scared? I originally thought that Aika would never mention anything about her abilities along the way, not to mention that it had been so long. So when Aika suddenly asked him this question, Lulu had to think for a while. You don't seem that scared. Why are you asking me? Aika looked at the road in the dark night and smiled bitterly. Really, I'm scared. Am I really going to rush in if I fail? Lulu still remembers what Aika said before driving into the suspension bridge. If he had done that, there would be a large group of Imperial soldiers chasing the motorcycle all over the city. Just thinking about it makes the scene feel weird. When Aika glanced at Lulu, she noticed that she couldn't help but smile, and she also raised the corners of her lips. After driving for so long, Aika only now felt that something that had been blocked in her heart had fallen away. He waited until Lulu turned his attention from his own abilities to the map before mentioning to her what he had felt a few minutes ago. If you start to think about it now, the feelings that really existed in the past will no longer feel like you have experienced them yourself. Is it okay to just keep going forward on this road? Well, if the map is correct, brother, there is someone ahead. After paying attention to Lulu for a while, Aika completely ignored the road ahead. The visibility of the street was very poor. Even if Lulu said this, Aika didn't notice it immediately. He just reflexively stepped on the brakes and turned the steering wheel sharply. Accompanied by the sharp sound of scraping the ground that could be clearly heard in the city, the motorcycle that braked suddenly hit something on the side of the road and came to a stop. I told you not to drive so fast. I didn't expect there would be anyone on the road at this time. I'm sorry. Aika hoped that it would be as soon as possible, but listening to Ling's words, such a thing would not happen. I'm going to see how that person is doing. The motorcycle crashed into someone's shop door. The person who was almost hit by Aika was a girl who looked to be 13 or 14 years old. Her obsidian-like shoulder-length hair did not attract much attention in the night. I don't know if she was frightened by the motorcycle rushing out with its headlights on, but she still stood there and didn't move away. "Sorry, are you okay?" "Fine." The girl simply answered Ika. At least there was no hint of shock in her voice. There were two small wooden barrels at her feet. She seemed to be walking on the road carrying these things just now. "Brother, I'm sorry, we didn't notice anyone on the road right away." Luoluo, who got out of the car after Ika, also apologized to the girl who looked about the same age as himself. The short-haired girl shook her head at them, and then walked towards the motorcycle with the lights still on. "It looks like we can't continue driving," she pointed out the damaged front box to Ika. "There's smoke coming out of there. Is there anyone living in this house? I still need to apologize to them." "It seems not." Following the direction of the girl's finger, there was a for sale notice hanging on the door of the store. There was probably no one living inside. She looked at Ling and Wei 11 who were standing by the car, then passed in front of Ika and Luoluo, and picked up the small wooden barrel on the spot again. "My family is still waiting for me to carry water back." She didn't mention the fact that she was almost knocked down. She bowed her head to everyone and walked into the alley. During the entire exchange, the short-haired girl said more than the four people combined. "Weirdo. But luckily he's not a scary person." Ika could only half-jokingly respond to Luoluo's confusion, then got on the motorcycle and tried to start it. As the girl said, "No matter how hard I pressed the accelerator, there was no response. It's nerve-wracking. Now I can only walk through it. Is this where the locomotive is? This car should be able to be sold for a lot of money. It will be used as compensation for damaging the door of this store." The short-haired girl's home was in an alley. As soon as she opened the door, her brothers and sisters rushed out to greet her. "Sister is back. Sister, let me help." She placed the bucket in the hallway and touched the heads of her younger siblings. "Have Mom and Dad gone to bed already?" "Well, I slept soundly. Anja needs to go out for a while. You are not allowed to wait for me here. Just drink the water and go to bed as I am told." "Eh? Why?" "Sister, won't you be back tonight? My younger brothers and sisters are all obedient children, and they can take care of themselves even if I don't come back at night. When he was far away in August, he left all his household affairs to them. So Anja can rely on her younger brothers and sisters." After admonishing them again, she turned around to pursue the few people she cared about. "Why are the people from those two families here?" Although Anja, who took care of Zi Mingyila, had not personally gone to the arena to watch their match against the Imperial Knights, she had seen the photos circulating within the Imperial Intelligence Agency. Taking advantage of the opportunity to talk to them, Anja made sure that she had not identified the wrong person, but she did not expose them on the spot. "Why do they come to this border town?" Anja believed that if she didn't know the answer, she would not be able to sleep tonight. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 323. Stop, this is not a place where idlers can enter at will. Thank you for your hard work, please take a break. Haha, then it's better to be respectful than to obey. Using the same method, Ika and the others successfully entered the inner gate of Rosenberg. The inner circle was once the territory of the nobles, and a castle with a spire visible from the outer circle was built, where Lan Mingyila was imprisoned. The reason why it can be easily transformed into a prison is because there is a dungeon underneath the noble's mansion. This is information that Ika and the others cannot possibly know. Using the cover of trees and shrubs, they quickly approached the prison. After arriving here, Luoluo's abilities are useless. According to the information provided by Sethes, This prison is full of self-disciplined magic machines. Orchid Heart's absolute royal power won't have any effect on machines without consciousness, right? But if there are only machines, I don't have to worry too much about using magic. I understand. Everyone, please protect yourself. If you get separated, use the tallest tower in the inner circle as the gathering place, okay? Now that we have reached this point, it is too late to be afraid. The golden particles constructed two small swords in Ling's hands. The opponent is a machine, so there is no need to use the back of the sword. I will be there to assist everyone. Luoluo and Ling are both ready, and Wei 11's eyes also have confidence that was invisible in the past. The next thing to do is not to reach the heights of the prison, but to break through underground. From the moment you enter the prison, the alarm is triggered and there is no chance to stop. Ika summoned the silver guns, and the familiar weight calmed the violently beating heart in his chest. Anja took a shortcut and followed Ika and the others to the inner city wall. She watched from a distance as they interacted with the Imperial soldiers guarding the city gate and then walked in. The land in the inner circle only left a shadow on her, and she could still vaguely recall the smell of the dank air in the castle dungeon. I heard that those two families have nothing to do with Augustus. How could they go in? Anja, who served Zi Mingyila, knew how the land was later disposed of, but only that it was taken over by August. It was precisely because Augustus took over the city and the political proposal proposed by Zimingyila that his hometown received attention and developed. Zimingyala not only showed kindness to herself, but also showed kindness to her entire family that was difficult to repay. Thinking of this, her chest became tingling again. Since being sent back to his hometown, this feeling has gradually become clearer. The territory behind the inner city wall was inaccessible to her in her current capacity, so Anja pretended to pass by the city gate by chance and walked by. The strange thing is that there are no Imperial soldiers guarding the city at the gate. Anja didn't know that Lan Mingyila in the news was behind the city wall, otherwise it would not be difficult to figure out Ika's purpose. She was secretly worried for a while in front of the city gate, but finally decided to continue running into the city. Inside the prison, which was supported by huge pillars, vibrations from time to time knocked down the gravel on the ceiling. Wei 11's confinement barrier imprisoned the extremely small but extremely fast autonomous machine in place. Even if the roller is controlled by the confinement barrier, the autonomous machine equipped with the magic turret still locks the target and fires the magic beam. The walls of the prison were like tissue paper, with holes punched through by the dodged beams. Ling shuttled through the complex intertwined magic beams and penetrated the magic turret with the double knives in his hands. Sister Ling, you still have. I don't know when the autonomous mechanical gun port attached to the top wall was facing Ling's blind spot. Following Wei 11's prompts, she bent her knees and jumped into the air, creating two golden tracks in the dim space. Wei 11's barrier blocked her in time from the magic beam that shot out faster than the sword. Among the piled debris of autonomous machines, new autonomous machines emerged from the darkness. This cheap magic machine seems to be a consumable, and it is not that simple to clean it completely. The light balls shot from between Lolo lit up the darkness in the space, and at the same time illuminated more enemies hidden in the darkness. The magic power shot out from the silver muzzle left a trail of the same color in mid-air, swallowing up the autonomous machinery under the light ball in one fell swoop. It takes more time than expected. It's unrealistic to think of a prison guarded by magic machines. It's just used to delay time. Ika and Ling used the back-to-back time to communicate briefly. Why is it that your magical equipment suddenly can't be used now? I don't know either. I feel lucky that this double gun form can appear. As soon as Ika finished speaking, flames shot out from the muzzle of the gun, forcing the two people to separate. The reason why Ling complained like this was because Ika didn't find out that other summons of mechanical alchemy could not be used until the enemy appeared. It would be easier to break through this level of magic beam net with his 6 floating cannons. But the fiery eyes did not respond to his call, and the silent silver guns were his only means of attack. If Ica had the same magic control ability as Luoluo, the situation would become more optimistic. The main reason is that you can't create a big explosion underground. If it collapses, you won't be able to get back to the ground. If Ling uses the ability of the light flame sword, he can also carve a way through the autonomous machinery, but no one knows whether this crumbling prison can hold on. After Lolo focused on the battle in the prison, he lifted the hint to those Imperial soldiers. Because the four men broke into the castle and alerted the radicals, the Imperial soldiers stationed in Rosenberg have now gathered to attack the prison according to the instructions of the radicals. The Senate's order is to eliminate all intruders without mercy. Fully armed Imperial soldiers gathered outside the prison. The chief gave instructions to all personnel for the last time on behalf of the Senate, and then broke into the prison gate that Ica and the others had destroyed. Anja was hiding in the nearby bushes. Although the searchlights had illuminated the area around the prison as bright as day, luckily the place had not been monitored yet. However, because the Imperial soldiers had sealed off the inner circle, Anja had no way to leave. Now he could only leave the inner circle except waiting for Ica and the others to successfully break through or be caught. It seems that the Senate is also their enemy. Thinking about it this way, Anja had a little fondness for the group of strangers. Maybe they just share the same problem. She hopes they can successfully get out of the current adversity instead of them being caught by the Imperial soldiers. Hey, I heard that a very important person is locked up here. Two Imperial soldiers who had neglected their duties walked to the bushes where Anja was hiding, holding cigarettes in their mouths. Anja quickly leaned down to prevent them from noticing the disturbance here. Isn't that right? I happened to hear the person above talking before. The two Imperial soldiers were still talking, and they didn't notice Anja's presence. It's said to be the treasonous princess. Anja heard everything they said word for word. The traitorous princess, Your Highness the third princess? Hey, don't say this nonsense. The third princess has not yet confirmed her treason. Did you have water in your head? The Senate has said so, so there is nothing to doubt. If it's not confirmed, it's not certain. If this is an unjust crime, you probably won't be able to save your head now that you're saying this. I remember that you are also a fan of that princess. No wonder you don't want to admit it. That's right. She is beautiful and has status. It has nothing to do with that kind of thing, right? Don't talk about it. Probably after finishing a cigarette, the choking smell of the cigarette remained in the air, but the words left no trace. I see, if what they said is true, that group of people was just trying to rescue the third princess. Anja suddenly didn't know what she should do. Anja is no longer Zi Mingyala's maid. Lan Mingyala is Zi Mingyala's favorite person, and he is not the first in the heart of the princess. Although she was a little jealous in her heart, Anja didn't think she was qualified to compete with Lan Mingyala for favor. But if it was the third princess who was in charge of national affairs before being imprisoned, maybe she could do something for Zi Mingyala on her behalf. Anja seemed to have found a way to live up to her past in her confusion. At this time, a dazzling light lights up in the direction of the prison. Deafening explosions, strong winds that uproot trees, and vibrations that are enough to crack the earth will sweep over in a few seconds. In August, 1,000 kilometers away from Rosenberg prison, the Imperial Army conveyed to Emilius the status of the frontier city that had turned into a battlefield. Our military aviation guided ship has carried out artillery bombardment on the ground and destroyed Rosenberg prison without causing any casualties to ordinary people. Don't be careless. As far as I know, the infiltrators this time are not that simple. Don't give them a chance to escape, otherwise there will be endless trouble. Yes, our aviation-guided ship has now occupied Rosenberg and its surrounding air superiority, and is ready for the second bombardment. Have the controls around Rosenberg prison been arranged? The leader of the Iron Lion Knights has led the Imperial Knights and our aviation magic ship to Rosenberg. The airport and station are also blocked by the station troops. Okay, let's continue monitoring like this. After the Imperial soldiers who had delivered the message exited the Senate chamber, Scala spoke with some hesitation. The third princess is still in that prison. What if she is harmed? Don't worry about it. The outcome of the war between our country and the kingdom of Tiberi has been determined. The third princess must dedicate her life to the future of the Bizi Empire before then. But if he dies in prison, the people will not be able to accept it. Marcus was also worried about the same problem as Scalus. Now that Junius has no real power, it is time for us to establish our prestige. There are as many reasons as there are that can make the ignorant citizens accept it. Emilius tapped the floor twice with the cane in his hand, and Scalus and Marcus could only shut their mouths. They just want to get the benefits of victory from Emilius, so they can just leave all their plans to him. As for their identity, they are just one of the backstage members used to support the Senate. The two of them and Emilius each get what they need. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 324. When Ica and the others did not know which level underground they had entered, a violent vibration suddenly came from above. The pillars and ground supporting the underground space were shattered by the shaking. Lolo. Elder brother. Ica quickly moved towards Luoluo, who was beside him, but the broken ground had already opened the distance between them. In the end, he failed to grab Luoluo's hand, and could only fall helplessly into the deeper darkness along with the broken rubble. Continuously colliding with the falling broken rocks, accompanied by a pain as if the bones in his body were broken, Ica hit the ground under the buffer of defensive magic. Huge boulders that could not withstand the force of his defensive magic were falling on his side, and the top of his head had turned into a dark hollow. After falling from such a high place, I only broke a few bones. I don't know if this can be called lucky. Ica supported the ground with the arm that was still free to move, and leaned her body's center of gravity on the boulder that had just fallen to the ground. Luoluo was so close to him that he became out of reach at the moment of collapse. Were Wei 11 and Ling also separated? I just didn't have time to look in their direction. Okay, it looks like you can still move your legs. Ica stretched his legs. At least the leg bones should still maintain their original shape. In the darkness, there was the sound of gravel being crushed. That kind of autonomous machinery can still move on this level. The left hand seems to be dislocated, and only the right hand can still pick up the weapon. Now I find it difficult to even move around, let alone run away. Countless autonomous machines drove out of the darkness and surrounded the boulder Ica was leaning on. Please, I have to go find Luoluo. 6 floating cannons appeared around Ica. He didn't know why he could use mechanical alchemy now. He didn't even have the idea of using the ability. Fire Flame Eyes, is that you? The silver pistol in his right hand remained silent, and Ica didn't know if this was its answer. Perhaps in exchange for one less gun, these 6 floating guns were obtained. That's enough, thank you. Ica didn't know if the fiery eye could hear his words, but he still thanked it sincerely. Mechanical alchemy, Predator. 6 floating cannons responded to Ica's call, surrounding him and rotating rapidly, and the silver magic beam turned into a light curtain as it rotated. The light curtain quickly spread out in all directions with Ica as the center, and all the autonomous machines within the radius were destroyed. The sound of gravel being crushed disappeared, at least not in this silent environment. That kind of self-discipline machine must still be in stock somewhere, but it can't stay in the same place forever. Ica thought this, and just when she was about to move her steps, the floor under her feet suddenly sank a little. He quickly raised his feet, but the vibration telling him that the mechanism was activated had already been heard. The wall in front of him was suddenly blown away, and a 4-legged magic machine crawled out of the broken wall. If spiders were used to describe this magic machine, then its size was too huge, and Ica needed to raise her head to see its entirety. but the appearance of this magic machine is definitely too similar to a spider. 4 mechanical legs supported a hemispherical turret that was less than 1/10 of the total volume. Several red light spots moved behind the mirror-like armor, like a spider's single eye. Aika still remembers the huge machine that prepared this magic weapon, but the size of that machine was far from comparable to the one in front of him. The red light spot finally stopped floating. It definitely didn't stop operating, but locked onto the target in front of it. Tisk. The second after Aika raised his leg, several red laser beams penetrated the position where he was standing. The familiar scene made Aika's whole body heat up. This was not due to excitement or fear in facing a powerful opponent. There was only pure anger in Aika's chest, angry for Lugo, who had once had such a laser beam pierce through his body at the slightest thought. Is the BZ Empire studying this kind of thing all day long? With only the current weapons, Aika was unable to fight back, and he was also angry at being so powerless. The second attack followed. The spider-like magic machine didn't even move its position. It only fired a laser beam from a floating red dot. If his legs could still move freely, he wouldn't be forced into a situation where he could only escape. Aika cursed her legs while looking for an opportunity to counter-attack among the laser beams that were continuously fired. At least a little closer. Scarlet Blade Spiral. The shouts mixed with the scattered rubble were not as shocking as the dawn of hope. The laser shot from the hemispherical armor suddenly changed its direction and turned diagonally upward. No, it didn't change the direction, but the entire body of the magic machine tilted. The 4 legs of the spider-shaped magic machine seemed to be torn apart by the invisible space, and extremely rough fractures emerged. Aika put the familiar voice behind her and rolled into the foot of the magic machine just as the laser beam shot toward the ceiling. Mechanical Alchemy, Predator. 6 floating cannons simultaneously destroyed the hemispherical armor that continuously fired laser beams. This huge magic machine finally stopped operating, and the red light spots were completely extinguished. Because of the reckless action just now, Aika suffered several more wounds on his body. You are still so desperate. I really don't know why Her Royal Highness wants you so much. The petite girl knight stepped out of the smoke, and it turned out to be a familiar figure to Aika. She held a huge double-edged spear in her hand, and the spiral blades at both ends were the weapons that just tore apart the space. I also hope Lan Ming can let me go. Really, if I let you become a knight, I don't know how many accidents will happen. Is that your magic costume? It's so spectacular. No wonder it couldn't be taken out on the airship before. When Aika and Charlotte clashed over a misunderstanding on the hijacked airship, Charlotte always fought with her bare hands. Later, she told herself that it was inconvenient to take out her magic equipment on the airship, but she never said the reason. Aika sat on the ground and gestured to his arm that he couldn't lift with the pistol in his right hand. I can't seem to move this arm. Can I ask you a favor? Really? Aika had never learned the art of reattaching a dislocated arm on her own. Charlotte muttered helplessly as she let go of her magic suit and walked to his side. It will hurt a little, just bear with it. In fact, this kind of pain was not enough for Aika to scream. After connecting Aika's arm, Charlotte sat down next to him. Aika looked at her sitting next to her, wearing a knight's uniform, but it was also full of dust. Is it possible that you are also here to rob the prison? You can tell just by looking at it. Don't talk to me, let me rest for a while. Charlotte hugged her knees and buried her face between her legs. She didn't even have the strength to answer Aika. Aika doesn't know what happened to her before she got here, except that she heard from Thetis that she wasn't convicted. But Aika has no intention of disturbing her now, and time doesn't allow it. The rest time Charlotte set for herself was less than 1 minute, and Aika proposed to take action together when she got up. Unexpectedly, Charlotte agreed to his proposal without thinking that he was in the way. You're not the only one here, right? Where are the others? Because of the shock just now, they were all dispersed, but they all seemed to be fine. During the minute that Charlotte was resting, Ika used PDA to get in touch with 3 other scattered girls. Ling and Wei 11 are together. They are not going deeper for the time being, but are going back up to the originally agreed upon tower to wait for the meeting. Luoluo also replied that she had no relationship, but Ika was still worried that she was alone, so she also asked her to return to the ground to join Ling and Wei 11. There are probably only the 2 of us underground now. Do you know Lan Ming's specific location? The person who helped me get here told me so. Sure enough, there was help for her to come here, but it probably wasn't the Holy See, otherwise they would have acted together in the first place. After learning Lan Ming's specific location from Xiaoluo, the 2 teamed up again to move deeper into the prison. The Knights of the Iron Lion, a knightly order directly under the Empire that was ordered to capture the intruders, witnessed the artillery bombardment on the ground. The Imperial Army was still in the prison, and they actually used artillery on the ground. The Senate doesn't know what's going on in its head right now, that it's possible for such an obvious act of abandonment to happen. Captain Dell, what should we do now? It's obvious that we can't enter the prison as ordered. The Knights are different from the Imperial Army and are fully commanded by the Knight Commander. The Knights are also all composed of nobles, and those who have ideas about the Senate's actions will speak out directly. They would not blindly become victims of the radical faction of the Senate, but would simply wait for instructions from their trusted Knight leader. I will not let my men die inexplicably. As long as the aviation magic ship does not retreat, we will just sit back and watch. Sanders Dell has commanded the Iron Lion Knights for 2 years, and has seen battlefields more tragic than the current situation. As the second son of the Dell family, this sturdy knight leader was a man who dared to act, so he won the Emperor's respect. When the Emperor passed away, the knights directly under the Empire were temporarily responsible to the Senate and Ziming, but this was only an assignment on paper. The aviation-guided ship conducted a second bombardment on the ground, and the Iron Lion Knights just stood by outside the bombardment range. Just as the 3 bombardments began to accumulate energy, orange-red light pillars swept across the night sky. The next second, the 3 aviation magic ships that were stuck in the air began to explode from the middle of the ship's body, turning into 2 falling fireballs against the dark background. Coming from that direction, Sanders Dell just turned and stood. His sight direction was the endless sea. Rosenberg is not a city by the sea. The coastline is still 8,000 meters away from Rosenberg. This certainly could not have been a bombardment fired from the shoreline, which was under Imperial surveillance. This is a magical bombardment from 8,000 meters away. It's spectacular. That bombardment was quite powerful. All 3 aviation magic ships were shot down in one blow. It shouldn't be an enemy, right? If it's an enemy, we can't stop this kind of bombardment, so let's just pray that it's not an enemy. No one in the Knights was interested in the crashed aviation magic ship. They were on standby under the instructions of the Knights and just talked about the unknown bombardment. Some of you are right, even if it is the enemy, we are helpless against this kind of attack. But now that the threat from the air has disappeared, we are ready to go underground to search for infiltrators. Sanders Dell waved the sword in his hand, ending the Iron Lion Knight's standby.